talk about this topic of no burnout is back when I started as a Waldorf mom years ago. It didn't take me very long to realize that it was less about Waldorf and more about me. That it was about 80% me and about 20% had to do with Waldorf. So the first piece of that, with knowing that 80% of it is you and 20% of it is Waldorf, is really sorting out like the self-evaluation piece. So my Thank You Feeling Willing members, we do self-evaluation on a regular basis. I recommend that you do it we have it in our Planning for Peace journal. You should commit to evaluating yourself a couple of times a year at least. And then if you're all of a sudden beating your head against the wall and you feel like nobody's cooperating, stop and evaluate again and go, okay, wait a minute, maybe the common denominator here is me. Evaluation. Self-evaluation leads to self-elevation. And then this one is one of my very favorites. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Okay, so got your pen and paper handy? I want you to rate yourself from 1 to 10, and you need to be honest because it does not help you if you're not. I'm not going to see these. You don't have to talk about them unless you want to, but I want you to rate yourself from 1 to 10. And those of you who are Thank You Feeling Willing members, you're probably like, oh crap, she's gonna make me do it again. Yes, I am. Because if you haven't done it since like September or even May, then it's time to do it again. Okay, here we go. I want you to rate yourself 1 to 10, 1 being like suckfest and 10 being woohoo, awesome, I'm knocking it out of the park, okay? We're gonna go through these. Number 1, personal rhythm. Number 2, family rhythm. And yes, they are different. They're different, they're very different. Number 3, holding the space. Number 4, planning. Again, you're rating them from 1 to 10. And I will say this, I just about never would rate myself a 10 on anything. Just being honest. Because there's always room for me to improve. Always. Number 5, main lessons. Like creation of them, following through of them, all of that. Number 6, artwork, handwork, and music. You can do them separately if you want, or collectively, it doesn't matter. Either one. The next one is confidence. How's your confidence? Then personal growth. So personal growth would be like, are you working on skills? Are you looking at continually bettering yourself? Or are you kind of stuck in a holding pattern? The next one would be your physical health, which is important. Even if it's not stellar, if it's not amazing, it's important. Your relationship with Source or God or Goddess or Elohim, whatever you call that, great spaghetti bowl. Rate that relationship. And your relationship with your partner tonight. One of the things I will say that I do a lot of things in pencil. But my evaluations, I date them and write them in black ink because I want to know where I'm at specific times in my, in like where I'm at, and then sort of then the date that I was there. So I think it's super important to be able to, to know what's going on. So, okay. The next piece we're going to talk about, we're going to sort of go from this space into your confidence and where that lives. So confidence lives in inner work. So if you have a good relationship with Source, regardless of what you call Source, then you're going to have better confidence. And a lot of people will say to me, I don't understand how the two are tied. They are like so tied. They're like connected like this. When one is out of balance, the other will suffer. Because this is what happens when we don't have a good when we don't have a good sort of grasp on inner work, our relationship with Source, then we tend to overthink. And when we talked about this last week, so overthinking is creating problems that don't exist. So we start to, when we're out of whack or out of balance with the inner work piece, then we start to doubt ourselves everywhere. And we really want to get to a place where we notice it's happening and go, whoa, Nelly, I don't need to go down that road. I can just back that up. And seeing that tipping point. Okay, some comments over here. Stephanie says, oh my, I'm way low in all of these. It's okay. That's why you're here. Life has been crazy lately and we can't seem to right the ship yet. Well, we're gonna talk about that. It's all good. Peggy says, yes, this is very true. Like peanut butter and jelly. Yes, ma'am. Just like peanut butter and jelly. They go together. So they're so closely intertwined. So often when I start working with somebody who has really low confidence and they're really struggling, and we then start to sort of tackle the piece with source, or tackle the inner work piece, that connection piece, they're either, they've never had a foundation, they've wanted to connect but they don't know how, they're floundering, they're mad at source, which happens to everybody, I think. Get mad at the universe every now and again, until we go back to that radical responsibility place and go, oh yeah, I chose. But there are several factors there. And as we build that one piece, it all starts to come together. And I have to laugh because I started talking about God and source and we lost 4 people. Happens every time. When you are not ready to tackle these subjects, it feels painful, it feels frustrating, and it feels like you're being smacked in the face. And that is not how I want that to feel for you. A gentle humbling should be more like a, hey, I'm a willing participant, I'm a willing student. And that's being open, and that act in itself, that very act of opening yourself is an act of inner work. Because then your cup is empty again and you're ready to fill it. You know, when we have that overflowing cup that we've talked about before, and it's just overflowing, there's no room for anything new. There's no room for any new information. There's no room for us to learn. But when that cup has been emptied and dried out properly and we're like ready to go, we're like, here, yes, please. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to be here. I'm a student. Then that very act itself is an act of inner work. That is an act of connection. It's an act of sort of opening up and being ready and being teachable. And being teachable is so very important. And you know, it's sort of like stepping into the right flow. We were sort of having this funny conversation just about abundance in general the other day. And y'all know I like Disneyland, so this is not a shock to anybody. But we, for those of you who have seen the Finding Nemo movie, you know, and I know people are going to be like, I can't believe she's talking about this in a Waldorf conference. I am. There's Crush and his kids, they ride the EAC, right? And it's this current. It's this current that they just ride. And when we're in that current and we feel that flow, and it's this current of abundance, and it's electric, and you can feel it, and it's palpable, and everybody's doing what they're supposed to, and you feel great. And then somehow you step out of it. You go, what the heck just happened here? And then you're just begging to get back in it. When we have to realize that all that resistance of trying to get back in it is keeping us from getting back in it. Just breathe out. And guess what? You can be in it. That is also an act of inner work. That opening, that sort of the veil parting, and you realizing that it's all good. It's all good. Every bit of it. And that you get to be like this co-creator with source, with spirit, with the universe. You get to co-create your own path. And you get to be responsible for it. This idea of radical responsibility becomes super exciting when you realize, hey, I get to choose. Because that's what we're all asking for, right? We're all asking for this opportunity to sort of be the one that gets to choose our children's destiny, or be on the same path with our partner, or to be in that space of togetherness. And it's so liberating when we realize we can choose. And so I hope that you can all sort of step into the EAC with us. What did we call it? Electric, abundant current, or something like that. We renamed it. It's not the Eastern Australian current. We renamed it to something way more Nielsen House-ish. So, and if y'all don't like what I named it, you can rename it yourself. but it's this awesome current. Okay, let's see. The self-talk inner story. So that happens all the time, right? This I can't place, or I've tried that, or I don't really understand what you're saying to me, or I can't get up before my kids, or my kids won't listen to me, or planning lessons is too hard, or like anything of resistance that you're wanting to throw in there or that you've told yourself. In fact, let's take 3 seconds. I'm going to start here in just a second. And I want you to think of like even just one self-limiting thought that you told yourself today. Even if it's just one. 1, 2, 3. Does everybody have one? You don't have to share it, but we tell ourselves self-limiting things all day, every day. We do the I can't, and then guess what happens? We're doing the same thing to our children. We're telling them that they can't. And that doesn't have anything to do with discipline and parenting. It has everything to do with the things that we're giving to them and the way that we are showing up to them. And then that's the way they're showing up to the world. So you want to ask yourself, the next time you have those limiting beliefs going on in your head, that I can't and I shouldn't, and this is too hard, and he'll never let me, and he doesn't ever help me, like all of those, I want you to stop and put those on your child, and then listen to like how bad that sounds. This just sounds horrible. Don't do that to yourself. It's time to tell yourself a new story so you can rewrite that story. So I'm going to challenge you. If you've had, and I'm sure you have, all of us have limiting thoughts. I have them regularly, but the difference is I catch myself and I go, oh, that was a limiting thought. Let's rephrase that. Let's reframe it. Let's fix it, because this is a world of continual abundance and we just need to be in that flow. And when we're in the flow, things happen for us. And when we are capping off that flow or restricting that flow, it doesn't happen for us. And it is the same in this homeschooling journey. Exactly the same. It's universal. So it doesn't matter what we're talking about. Okay, so I want you to take those self-limiting thoughts that you had today. That's your homework. And if you want to write them to me and let me know what you changed them around to, I would love to hear them. Welcome to DM me on Instagram or PM me on Facebook. I'd love to hear them. Okay, or say them here in the group. That works too. Let's see. Let's see. So I guess my question for you, and please feel like you can answer in here. What did you do to cultivate your inner work today? Even just one thing, even if it was just sort of standing alone, because cultivating inner work, it's many things. It doesn't have to be prayer and meditation. Yes, that's like the ultimate space of oneness is sort of this space of meditation, but we're moms. That can't always happen, right? So Lapika says her Ellie likes my mushroom necklace. Thank you. But we can't sort of often take this full, if you picture a monk that just sits and meditates all day, that's not something that's a reality for us. So we have to pick some things that are. So if you're getting up before your children, taking some of that time to pray and meditate is perfect. Even if you can't do that, just take 30 seconds to get your mind and your thoughts together. And just close your eyes, stand tall, and just get your thoughts together, even if it's only for the next hour. And then you have to come back and do it again. I have been in that place many times. There have been many times where I have come and I said, okay, please God, I just need to get through the next hour. And what do I need to do for the next hour? And then a thought comes to me, I go, oh, all right, I'll go do that. And I go do that and I come back and go, okay, wait a minute. I'm back in that place again. Help me. I get the next instruction and then I go do it. So you've got to really get to a place where you are submitting to asking for help. That is huge. That's this huge part of inner work. Okay, let's see here. My notes. I want you to know that all temperaments connect. All temperaments have struggles in different ways. All temperaments need it in it, and if you're listening to me, you're like, I don't even understand this T word that she's using. Temperament is a way to sort of know thyself. People have asked me, is it like Myers-Briggs? No. It's actually different. I mean, Myers-Briggs is, Myers-Briggs is Myers-Briggs, and it is definitely informative on some things, but temperament, I see Myers-Briggs as sort of belonging to your body, incarnation here, and I see temperament as almost belonging to your soul. So it's in my opinion, much deeper. The two go nicely together. When you understand both, they go nicely together. My Myers-Briggs is something that most people are like, what? Really? Yes. Because it feels very different than my temperament. Temperament is much bigger than introvert, extrovert. It's very, very different. So it is not a, that's not a way to evaluate temperament as far as introvert and extrovert. Understanding your temperament's huge, not just for you and understanding yourself, but for understanding and helping you work with your children. Temperament doesn't usually completely seat until like between 9 and 12, but everybody that's looking for it, you pretty much have an idea of what temperament your child is. Sometimes in the womb. I could say sometimes in the womb, but not always. Not always. Some children just completely surprise the heck out of me. But it's definitely a piece of inner work where you are continually evaluating and sort of listening and being in an open space of how they're unfolding. Children that have special needs tend to be more polarized to the wrong, scratch that, the positive and negative aspects of temperament. Please realize I had a stroke 5 years ago, and sometimes the word that seems like it should be the right word comes out, but it's not. So I usually catch myself and correct myself. So it's not, the word wrong was not there, but the positive and negative aspects of temperament. So for instance, my oldest son has autism spectrum disorder. He's 22, and he is like classic phlegmatic. In fact, I wouldn't even say he was anything except that. We have spent the entirety of 22 years working to balance him. So he's not just that. But all of the positive aspects and all of the frustrating, more negative aspects are all embodied in my sweet son. Thank goodness I love him. And we have been continually praying that he finds a woman that will love him as much as his mother does. So, when you have children that are, that have spectrum issues or, be it autism spectrum, SPD, those kinds of things, you're going to see some polarities. So like my youngest daughter, she, has SPD, I think a fair amount of OCD, and she's pretty choleric. And so she has the strong, like being able to lead, but then she also can have like the most controlling tantrum ever. So there are definitely some beautiful things that you can learn from temperament with your children, and it all then informs how you show up to each of them. And I've had parents say to me, "But shouldn't they all just be able to figure out how to live in this world and sort of sort out what you say to them?" Yes and no, because part of this is we're teaching them, we're leading them, right? We're guiding them. And it's our job to be able to guide them. It's our job to sort of bring them to this space. So if I said to, let's just take Super Sam, for those of you who know my son that's 12, he is an amazing boy, and he is dominant, phlegmatic, with a touch of melancholy. Now, if I was like, come on, eat your dang breakfast, let's go, he would shut down. The choleric in me is like, come on, hurry it up, let's go. But if I were to come to that space with him, he would shut down. He would not be productive. And so me as his mom, Jenna, he's the sweetest boy, I swear. He's a sweet boy. Jenna says, I love Sam. Jenna knows Sam personally, so he's a pretty sweet boy. But if I want to be the best mom that I can, I need to not be a raging bitch. I have to be able to meet my children where they are. I can't be this nasty person that comes out when somebody is taking their own sweet time. And so I have to remind myself, oh, I love this person. I love him so much. And you know what he knows about being able to work with his mom? he knows that if he's got something that I've asked him to do, that if he comes to me because he doesn't understand it, he knows that I will take the time to explain it to him because I want it done properly. And so if he just like does a lazy job at it, like as a phlegmatic way to do things, I just don't really want to put my, my attention to this, then he knows that it's going to make the choleric in me mad. But he knows if he comes to me with a competent conversation and says, Mom, I don't understand this, or Mom, can you help me? He also knows that the leader in me will be like, of course I'll help you. Let's go figure it out. Because that's part of understanding temperament. Even where we are, I still have mentors. I still have, we have a business mentor right now who is kicking my butt in inner work. And I'm like, seriously, I had all of this down. He's like, no, you don't. He reminded me that when your cup is full, there's no room to learn. And so it is definitely about being continually open and willing to learn. Okay. Alicia says, thank you for being so honest with us all. Hey, you know what? This is not anything if I'm not transparent and honest with you. I was thinking last night, Eric and I I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram, but I go to the beach like every night or sometime during the day. My challenge for myself has been to have my feet in the sand every day. And so I take a picture every day. So he and I, usually we all go together, but sometimes it's like 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, seriously, I made a commitment to myself, feet in sand every day. And it's only 3 blocks away, so it's not a big deal. So we'll be tromping out at 10 o'clock at night. And so we were having this conversation last night about my worst parenting moments in the last 22 years. And I started talking and he goes, really? That's all you come up with? I was like, well, I'm not, there have been absolutely times when I have fallen down and I have to reevaluate myself. There have been times when I have started to yell and my husband's like, I love you. It's time for you to exit other room. And that's like my wake up call, but I have to be pliable in order for that to be okay. If I was out of control choleric, that would not be okay. I would be like, excuse you? Well, why are you talking to me like that? But because I love him and because I love my family, it is definitely a piece of me being humble enough to take correction. Phlegmatics can be hard to motivate sometimes. It has to be something they really want to do. Or you have to have a carrot that is something they really want to do. Super Sam's love language is reading and food. And sometimes retro games and TV. Excuse me. And he also, phlegmatics generally want to please. All children want to please their parents. All children. So when you tap into the temperament piece, tapping into the temperament piece really allows you to see that piece where they want to please, like all temperaments. So my oldest is totally phlegmatic. And then my second son, who was melancholy most of his life, is definitely now more sanguine than melancholy, which I think is very interesting. After those teenage years, right about 16, 17, he made this gentle transition into he was melancholy sanguine. He made this transition into sanguine melancholy. My daughter, who was the other way, sanguine melancholy, has made a full transition into melancholy sanguine. I'm not even sure how much sanguine is left. She's in a very melancholy place right now. Super Sam, like I said, is phlegmatic, melancholy. Soraya, I think I birthed pure will. I leave it to me to birth a child that is exactly like her mother. Exactly. Like my mom will go, wow, I can't believe she just said that. I think I heard you say that 20 years or 40 years ago. 20 years ago. Yeah. So, but it's about knowing how you show up and knowing how to actually talk to them. So you have to study yourself and then you have to study your reaction to things. So because I'm choleric, pretty choleric sanguine, I can fly by the seat of my pants pretty easily, sometimes too easily. But all of those pieces have to play together in my parenting. So if I were to yell, and this is for any of you that are yellers and you have kids that have tuned you out, yelling makes a phlegmatic and a melancholy shut down. They don't hear you anymore. So if you want them to hear you, you need to appeal to that space that is them. And if you are a yeller and you're not choleric, which a lot of people, I will say, think that they're choleric and they're really just really pissed off melancholies. A lot. I often have people say, I think I'm a choleric melancholy. And I say, nope, you're just a mad choleric or a mad melancholy. Because I know you can argue with me, but I really and truly don't think the two can work together. And there are some very big reasons why. And one of them is melancholies have empathy to the nines and cholerics have to build their empathy because they don't have any. It's something that has to be taught to us, and we have to be in spaces to grow that. And motherhood helps a lot for sure, but definitely it's something that we have to build. So if you are a yeller, and I used to be, in fact, that was when we were talking about worst parenting moments last night. That was one of the things I was talking about was how much I used to yell until I really realized how little people were listening to me. Because they're used to me yelling all the time. And I'm Italian, so there's a lot of yelling that goes on in my family lineage. But it's like yelling in a I love you place. And so it's loud. So I had to tap into that place, the loud I love you place, and not into the angry place. And that took some time. That took some refinement on my part, for sure. Because I want children that listen to their mother and their father, listen to, not from an authoritarian standpoint, but from a standpoint of, hey, there's just some crap you got to do, or I need you to not get hit by that car, or whatever it is. We need to be able to have children that we can communicate with, and we can't communicate with them if we're not speaking their language. And they will definitely shut down if they are of a certain temperament. Phlegmatics get overwhelmed. Absolutely overwhelmed. You yell, they go, oh, okay, can't hear you. If I close my eyes, you're not there. That's totally the, Winnie the Pooh. If I close my eyes, I can't hear you and you won't see me space. And so they'll shut down. And that doesn't get anything except for a cleric that's more mad. And I kind of have gone off the rails on my notes, so I will bring it back. But I know a lot of people like it when I talk about temperament. So when it comes to being able to communicate, you need to look at where you are and make sure that you're as healthy as you can be when you're communicating with them. Okay, so the next piece here is rhythm. And I know that that's a dirty word for some of you. But I was really thinking about this yesterday, and I talk about rhythm, a lot. I kind of am the queen of talking about rhythm. I feel like the guardian of rhythm in a lot of ways. I was really thinking about this yesterday. My question for you those of you that are struggling with rhythm is, are you converted to rhythm? That makes such a difference. If you're not converted to the concept of it, you will struggle. So what does that mean? Being converted to it. It means that that you sort of realize that you need it. And that not just that you need it, but that you want it. So if you are somebody who's really been struggling with the rhythm aspect of it, I want you to step back and ask yourself a few things. One, I want you, and we sort of talked about this a little bit last week, but I want you to ask yourself, was there a time in your life when rhythm wasn't safe for you? So by that meaning, maybe you had a tumultuous childhood and there was no rhythm. Maybe you were always sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe, or maybe you had a great rhythm, but maybe it was schedule, and it was that, somebody my birth father was in the Army. So it was, it was always in a straight line. It was always, we knew exactly what was happening. On the Von Trapp, the Sound of Music, when the Von Trapps, he blows the whistle, that was kind of like my house. And there was only one of me for a long time. So if you have had struggles in that way with rhythm, if you have that in your past, or if you've really had a hard time with rhythm now, I want you to sort of step back and ask yourself why. Because there's a fundamental piece inside here that that is the cause of that. So either you're not converted to it, or you've got some poop from your past that you need to sort out. And when you sort it out, it will help tremendously. So when I've worked with several clients one-on-one who had some tumultuous pasts, some that were in foster care, or mom had several different husbands, or things like that. And rhythm was never, there was never anything for them to be able to count on. So being in that space of not knowing when the other shoe was going to drop was a constant for them. So your brain kind of gets in fight or flight constantly. You have to really diligently teach yourself a new story. So you have to be converted to it in your heart first. And when you're converted to it in your heart, then you can start to overcome your past. Victoria says, I'm scared. I get bored with life. I have been holding myself back. Why have you been holding yourself back? That is a different story. You need to tell yourself a new story, Victoria. New story. Write a new story. Like, I am Victoria. I am dynamic. I show up the way I want to. This weird relationship that you make with rhythm, where you are fighting it all the time, you're only hurting yourself and your kids and your family. You're not hurting me. You're not. You are standing in your way. So in fact, that was going to be my question for you guys. What do you think your biggest rhythm hurdle is? So I'm just going to give you the answer. Your biggest rhythm hurdle is you. It's you. So sort of getting yourself to a place where you realize that you are the guardian of it, and you're converted in your heart to it. So because, and the reason why it's so important that you're converted in your heart to it is if you're not converted in your heart to rhythm, then you are going to struggle at every turn. And so, I want you to think about other things in your life that that you're really good at. Like maybe it's, maybe you're a vegan and that's your way of eating, or maybe you're really converted to doing the paleo thing, but you're converted here, not just here. You have to convert in your heart before you can convert anywhere. Your heart gets converted before everything else. I'm going to tell you something else. I don't convert. The Spirit converts. So the Spirit converts you to that way of thinking. The Spirit converts you into that space. The Spirit converts you to being the person that you want to be. You have to be, again, open to that inner work piece. And then being open to that inner work piece allows your heart to be open to saying, hey, I want this. And as you are converted in your heart, you convert the rest of you. You convert your brain. You convert your family. You get everybody to come with you. Again, rhythm is tied to you. And you know that it is sort of, when you're converted in your heart, then you can do anything. So I want you to ask yourself, if you're really struggling, if you've really, really been struggling, I want you to ask yourself, hey, am I really converted in my heart? And if you are not converted in your heart, then you've got to ask yourself why. You have to ask yourself, like, what is it that I need to sort out within myself in order to be able to do this? Because it's pretty big. Let's see, I'm going to grab some comments here. Yes, Facebook is acting crazy. I don't know what the heck is up with that. Thank you, techie husband. Yes, I'm like, so he's like, maybe we don't need the camera. I said, well, he goes, no, we do. we do. Yes, we do. Peggy says, thank goodness for the backup. Yep. Okay. So Bridget says, my biggest hurdle with rhythm is interruptions, like out of town guests constantly, or trips we take, then we are away for a few days. So you have to get to a place where you're so converted to rhythm. Doesn't matter who's coming into your life, and it doesn't matter where you are. I hold rhythm when we are on a trip, because the core bare bones of rhythm is eating and sleeping. So when you have those pieces in place, always, then that really helps. Okay, so Jenna says, when you say converted, what does that mean exactly? That means that you know it works, you know you need it, and you crave it, and you will do anything, move heaven and earth to make sure that you have it. That is the place that I am at now. I have not always been in this place, but I am in this place now where I go, nope, sorry, that's going to throw us off. Not happening. Or, okay, if we're going to do that, if we're going to do this, and I will say, I am also very, like if you said to me, let's go to Disneyland right now, I'd be like, all right, let's go. I will play it in the car when I'm missing tonight. Let's go. Jenna would never say that to me. I'm just kidding. But I would say I can still fly by the seat of my pants, but I know the pieces that need to be turned in order for it to not be mayhem when I get back. And so that's where you want to get with rhythm. And that takes time. It takes time, and it takes you doing it consistently. It takes you knowing that that's what you want. It takes you being able to zig when the zagging is coming at you. It takes you sort of seeing like way ahead of you and seeing what's coming. You know, like for instance, we have this month that's coming, the December, which is the giant distraction month for a lot of moms. And it's a good distraction. I mean, it's nice to have a holiday and have some downtime. But for most moms, it's not a holiday and downtime. It's a thing you have to do. And so, especially my Thinking, Feeling, Willing moms and anybody who joins us who's not a Thinking, Feeling, Willing member, we are doing an amazing thing in December. We are doing an Advent calendar for moms. And it starts Saturday, December 1st, and it goes through the end of the month. And we are going to give you bite-sized things every day to help get you going. So it's great for our new moms that really need to pull themselves in to thinking this way. And it's also great for moms that have been at this for a while that need a refresher. Okay, so let me grab some comments here. Excuse me. Jenna says, my biggest struggle is sticking with a schedule. We often have things come up or change. Perhaps I'm confusing schedule with rhythm. You are. So schedule and rhythm are different. And regiment and rhythm are different. So rhythm is like a river that flows. A schedule would be more like a lock system, you know, like a boat that like a lock system that moves boats. So something like external action has to happen in order for that boat to move down the river or through the lock system. So rhythm would be like personal rhythm. You're getting up at a decent time. You have things you do when you get up in the morning, right? Go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, do your meditation, prep for your day. That's your personal rhythm. You might have some mornings, and I do this, some mornings I am completely work focused. Some mornings I am completely school focused. Some mornings I am completely me focused. And I plan out what each of those are. They're all different. Well, not all different, but in general. So some of that is informed by externals. So an external would be like Monday mornings I do a video. So that's an external that is put into my rhythm. And so I work the rest of my rhythm around that Monday morning video. When I have other videos that I do with a group or other things like that are work pieces that are externals, they sort of go into that. That's why it's so important that you do the actual rhythm chart. So, having the actual rhythm chart, the blank rhythm chart, and keeping track of what you actually do versus what you think you do, because you always, always, always have it wrong. I will guarantee you nobody does the actual rhythm chart and comes off going, you know what, that is exactly what I thought I spent my time on. No, ma'am. There's always some sort of like tweaking that you have to do to it because it's not, it doesn't come out right. And it's because the mind sort of lives in the story place. And so you get yourself into this story that this is how it's going. But then when you write it down, you're like, dang, I spent the last 20 minutes on Pinterest. and you don't realize it, and you might go, oh, I don't spend that much time on the internet. But when you sit down and you look at it, and it's not just the internet, it could be anything. It could be good things and negative things. So really keeping track of your rhythm for 1 week. Doesn't matter what week it is, because our habits are always the same. And that's one thing about habits, is you have them. So it doesn't matter if it's the week of Christmas or if it's in the middle of April. It doesn't matter, your habits are the same. And it doesn't matter when you do that tracking, because I have moms that say, oh, I want to track, but I want to track a normal week. Don't do that. Just track a week. Doesn't matter what week it is. Because if you're just tracking a week, you will see where your habits fall into there. And habits are informed by your temperament. They're informed by your perspective. They're informed by how you were raised. And we talked about that last week in the other video. They're informed by many things. But then we get to see how we want to change some of those, or things that we want to change. And sometimes it's easy and it's something that can happen like that. Sometimes it takes a while. So with regards to schedule, now schedule is like, I have to be at co-op at 10. That's schedule. So your morning rhythm needs to reflect you being able to leave at a certain time so that you can go to co-op at 10. Or so that you can go, like, I know some of you work, or like what. So my rhythm is like this. We changed things up. Like I said, we got this coach and he made me totally think about time in a different way. We started Monday, Wednesday, Friday, kids have karate they leave here at 10:40. So in order for me to get in 2 main lessons in the morning, and this is how it works for us, I know we are blessed to both be here together. So when it would have looked different at a different time in our life, but we would have made it work somehow. So Eric and I both take a child in the morning because we can. And then they're done. They're done. When they leave here to go to karate, they're generally done. And that means we have to start school by 8:30. That's earlier than we used to. We get in all of our music. We get in all of those pieces in order to be ready to go when they need to go. And then when they go, then my work rhythm starts. And so then there's that piece. He goes and does something. So it's this breathing in and breathing out. And unless we didn't get up when we should have, or we didn't have breakfast planned, or any of those other things, then we're generally, I'm not watching my clock, because we're feeling it. We're feeling that breathing in and breathing out. Even when I had a house full of kids, we could still feel that breathing in and breathing out. But there are those pieces that go with that. So yes, menu is a huge part of that. Knowing what you're going to eat, making sure you have the food that needs to be there is huge. Going to bed when you're supposed to, huge. Getting up when you should, huge. All of those pieces are really big. That doesn't mean that if you can't get up before your kids, as we had this talk, somebody on one of the groups mentioned that today, like that she only has one child. And so I think that sometimes people get down on her, oh, we only have one. But it doesn't matter. Even if you've only got one, it could still be really hard if you have a child that gets up at 5 and you are trying to get up before them, and it's hard. So you have to rearrange some things a little bit. Doesn't mean it's impossible to do. It just means you have to rearrange some things a bit. We talked about it being 80-20. So now let's talk about the 20%. That 20% that's Waldorf, that piece. I would say these are my top few. I don't know, there's not 10. There's a few here. Like what are the top pieces with the 20%? So I read years ago, and this made this huge impression on me. It was a Waldorf teacher, and I read his planning notes, and I don't even remember who it was. It was a master teacher, though. He'd been at it for probably 20 years or more. He said for every hour of teaching, he probably spent 2 hours plus in prep, whether it be drawings, chalkboard drawings, making sure his notes were right, making sure he knew the stories, making sure. So I want you to think about that when it comes to prepping for your kids. Now, there's a bunch of people that are going to be like, holy crap, I can't do that. That's a lot. It is a lot. But if you have more than one child, pat yourself on the back, because guess what? You do it once and then it gets easier. So really and truly, it's wearing that student hat and realizing that we need to put in the effort. And I know we'd like an open and go, we don't have to think about it solution, but I want you to think about something. If you sent your kids to public school and those teachers put in the amount of time you're putting in, how would you feel about that? That should really it should either make you excited and have you be like, yeah, I know I put in more. Or have you be like, oh, maybe I need to think about that some more. If you are not putting in at least what you would expect somebody else to put in for your child, if you're not willing to do it, who is? Who is willing to do it? Like really and truly, it's not rocket science, I promise, because we're going to talk about some pieces here that make it not rocket science. But if you're not willing to put in the time, nobody's going to be willing to put in the time. It's you. This is a choice you made. Remember, because you're an agent, this is a choice you made to homeschool. You didn't have to make it. Nobody twisted your arm. You didn't have to do this. You could send them. Absolutely. Your mother-in-law or sister-in-law or somebody is probably be like, yes, let me help you. You have plenty of people in your life that would support that. If you want people to support this, like what you're doing, you got to put in the time. And for those of you who are like, it's going on, the story is starting in your head, but I don't have time, you're gonna have to make it. And you're gonna have to sort that out, because there's no getting around that. There's no getting around it. As far as how much time it takes, that's all up to you. That's all up to you. Like I said, we have some tools, and we're going to talk about those now. But I really want you to think about this. If you don't take the time, nobody's going to. Nobody's going to. Michelle says, when do you put in the time for all of your own learning? I can barely get in a half hour to an hour in the morning, but I also did not do the planning back in April. Well, there's the first ticket, and we're going to talk about when to start planning. We're also going to talk about sort of how you get caught up if you're in that space now. And I know you are in that space, Michelle. But also, put your kids to bed earlier. I get a ton of reading done after they go to bed. So bedtime here is like 7:38. And then my bedtime is sometime between 9 and 10, generally. So I want you to think about that. If you are having a hard time carving out an hour in the evening, then you've got to change some other things around, even if you have big kids. And I know I have moms that have said to me, but I love the conversations I have with my big kids at night. Me too. But I want to be coherent for them. and have them be like conversations that I feel like I'm totally invested in. And that doesn't happen when I'm exhausted. So they know that. And I am upfront and honest. I will listen to a conversation, and we will have some conversation. And then I will say, sweetheart, I love you. Would you get up with me in the morning? And I have done that. I have said, will you get up with me in the morning and let's have this chat? Guess what? They often will. Sam and I often go to the tide pools as soon as day breaks. Sometimes we walk there when it's dark. And that's just he and me time. I spend that time, he tells me all kinds of things. Usually has something to do with Space Invaders or a comic book he's reading. But it's time that's just the two of us. So if you are not looking at like being a guardian of their sleep, that's like the first place you need to look, because it's a rhythm piece. That's a rhythm piece. So getting them in bed, getting you to a place where you've got, I mean, Soraya's in bed generally by like 7:15, 7:30, 8 on a really, really late night for her. I still have, if I go to bed at 10, 2 hours after that. So I want you to really look at your time. So Michelle, my challenge for you is going to be, if you have not done the actual rhythm chart, this is my challenge actually for anybody who says, I don't have the time. I want you to do the actual rhythm chart for a week. I guarantee you will find holes. I guarantee it. So then your job is to shore up those holes. Shoring up those holes will be golden for you. That's your time right there. That's where you find it. And then you find other time you listen to podcasts. You know, there are these great things. They're called earbuds. Y'all need to invest in some good ones. I often will have my phone in my pocket and an earbud in if we are walking or out somewhere, or I'm not needing to hold the space as much, or at night, or when I'm doing the dishes, or when I'm folding the laundry. So I listen to podcasts. We have a whole bunch of podcasts over on our site. So I would definitely listen to some podcasts should you need to. That will help you with your learning. I would listen to Steiner's podcasts, rudolphsteineraudio.com. Those are great. When it comes to the topic that you are researching, you know, definitely after, you know, third grade or so, third, fourth grade, you're going to be in research mode. I listen to YouTube documentaries. I listen to Netflix documentaries while I'm knitting at night. Like there are lots of times that I get in the time, but you got to make it. You have to decide that that's what you're going to do. You have to decide that you're an agent and that this is what you're doing and that this is your life. This is what you chose. So then you find the time. When you're ready, the time appears. And I'm going to challenge that if you say you don't have time to plan, it's because you've not made it. Okay, so plan early, plan and evaluate often. So in fact, the fourth call in this series, Thinking, Feeling, Willing Moms, and those who are going to join us, hopefully, the fourth call in this series is the mid-year evaluation. So we'll be doing that. I think it's in January. It's like one of the calls in January. So evaluating often, and that will be the process of evaluating your children. And then use curriculum that feels good for you. Might be ours, it might be not be ours. It doesn't matter to me. All Waldorf curriculum is pretty much the same. So, but you need to resonate with the author, and you need to make sure that whatever curriculum you use, that you can get some help afterwards. There's nothing like no service after the sale. So you want to be sure that you can get some help. And then you want to read it back to front. I mean, front to back when you get it. The whole thing. 9 times out of 10 when I get a question about the curriculum, it's on page 33 and somebody just didn't read it. So you want to read it, the whole thing, front to back. Jacqueline says, Melissa, if I put my son to bed at 8, he is up at 4. He has never slept very much. Well, how old is your son? I would actually put your son to bed at 7 if he's up at 4. Really would. Sleep generally begets sleep. Tell me how, I don't see a response yet as to how old your son is. By the time Soraya is 7, she gets up at 6 usually. She was sleeping until 7:30 and then this lovely time change. I would be so happy if California decided they didn't want the time change. I'd be so happy. Oh, he's 9? Honey, he is not your problem then. You need to say to him, okay, great. If you're going to get up at 5, at 6, sweetheart, I am on duty at 8. See you then. Between now and then, you're welcome to grab a snack, use the bathroom, listen to audios, look at a book. You do not need to be his tour guide. He is 9. He's 9. Just allow him to be. It is okay to have quiet time in the morning. You have to show him how to have that quiet time in the morning. That's how they learn. They learn from you. My children know it, not because they're all the same and they're all easy. That is absolutely false. I have 5 very different personalities and they all know how to quiet themselves because I taught them. Michelle says, I've done that. Ask a question and then you go to ask a question to then go to the mom lessons and then I end up getting my answer there. Yes, it's all there. It's all there. I don't mind answering questions or ask on the group. I will tell you guys though a funny story because I am, I do have this business coach. When I go to ask a question, I'm like, oh crap, it's in something he wrote. I can't ask that question. And I go and I look for it because I don't want to ask that question on the Facebook group. Have somebody go, yeah, it's in module 2. And I'd be like, oh, sorry. I won't do that. So take the time. And Jacqueline says, okay, yes, make a plan for right now. And you write him a note. I love you. The day starts at 7 or 8 or whatever time you need to start it at. You do not need to be his tour guide from the time he gets up. Nuh-uh. That is setting himself up for false expectations. False expectations. He needs to learn how to govern himself. Peggy says, how do you show them that? My son is the same way in that regard. He wakes everyone else and is ready to go ASAP. I have tried all sorts of things, but no go. He is 8. Then you have a very frank conversation with him, Peggy. And you say, I love you, but this is unacceptable. You cannot wake everybody in the house up. Listen, I had children like that. And it's consistent over and over again. Harry, I know you get up at 6. Guess what? Everybody's still sleeping. So what are you going to do? Like he might have to come in. Soraya has to, she comes in and she checks in with me, even though she's getting up. She'll come in and give me a kiss and a hug. And then she'll say, I'm going to go listen to a story. And I'll go, okay, go listen to a story. Sparkle Stories, you guys, is golden. I wish they had an affiliate program. Sparklestories.com is worth every penny of the $14 or $15 I pay for them a month. It's like over 1,000 stories. We are never hurting for stories. She'll go and listen to a story. She knows that she has a group of things that she can do in the morning because we've trained her that way. And then not trained her because then I get people say, oh, she's not a dog. No, of course she's not a dog. She's a human being, and as human beings, we have to learn things. And so as humans, we have to learn how to do things. There are things that are not innate to us, that are not to, they're not part of us. Peggy says, is that on the computer? Sparklestories.com, they have an app. So we have a very stripped down tablet that the kids are allowed to use. So we have that, or before I allowed that, I had an external Bluetooth speaker for my phone that she could take the speaker with her. So and you could do the same with a computer. I'm not a device-driven mom, but I have a device. My guess is you probably have a device. Get a Bluetooth speaker and hand it to him. Say, go listen. You can set up a playlist. Go listen. Listening or if he's an avid reader, Samuel would have just read and still does. He would rather just read and have the peace and quiet. He would never get up early. That would never be Sam. But, you get to look at their temperament and you want to meet their temperament. But for sure, I would say you are allowed to get up, go to the bathroom, even get dressed if you want. Grab a snack. I always keep snacks, like a fruit bar or a Lara bar. There's always something if they wake up and they're ravenous and they can't wait till breakfast. Always. Or a piece of bread, something that I don't have to be involved in. But we talk openly about like, why is it important that we have quiet time in the morning? Why is it important for mom to have quiet time in the morning? And I will say, remember the other day when I sort of flipped my lid? Oh yes, it's because I didn't have my quiet time in the morning. I'm going to take responsibility for getting up before you. I need you to take the responsibility to realize that the day doesn't start till 7. And it doesn't have to be a negative conversation. It is a very sweet thing that you can do for your children to teach them how to self-regulate and to teach them how to govern themselves. And Soraya is 7 years, she said the other day, I'm 7.5. No, she's not. She's 7 years and 7 months. She'll be 8 in April. She's been easily doing that on her own for a year. So before that, she needed somebody's help, and that's totally fine. And I'm totally happy to help her get set up. She also can paint on her own, draw on her own. I have all the art supplies there for her. They're there, and she has full reign. I'm always in a space where I want to teach them how to take good care of those things. And you can't teach a child to take care of those things if they don't have them to take care of. So we've always had the good art supplies out. Emily says, Sparkle Stories changed our lives and help us keep our rhythms. My son loves them. We love Sparkle Stories. We've been using Sparkle Stories for probably 3-4 years. And I love that they have a way that you can pick by age. Soraya knows which one she can pick by age. She's actually moved on to some of she was really excited because I let her pick the 8-year-old stories the other day. She's like, what? This whole new level of stories has opened up to me. But there are amazing stories there, and Sparkle Stories is owned by a Waldorf teacher, and he is an amazing storyteller. So I don't know how he does it, honestly, but if you guys have ever caught any of his lives on Facebook, and he just spins a story like that, just way fast. He's really good. They're good stories. Alicia says, what age do you start this? My son is 6 years old. Sparkle Stories has stories for 3-year-olds. So now that does, I'm not promoting hours and hours of listening to Sparkle Stories. and not in lieu of you being with them, for sure. However, we've always used them for bedtime. We started using them when she was about 3.5 at bedtime. So it anchored our bedtime. I would read a chapter book or whatever first, and then we would listen to a sparkle story and go to sleep. So that's sort of been our rhythm for the last 4+ years. And it's worked really well. And because they are, they're often like I think about them a lot like the book Healing Stories for Challenging Behavior. Some of the stories that are in there, a lot of them meet behaviors, struggles that children are having, and so they're very targeted for their age and developmentally. They're perfect. They're perfect. So I would say, like I said, the youngest stories, I think the Libby and Dish stories are for 3-4-year-old, and they move on up from there. And they have some adult stories now. I mean, not like adult stories, but like stories that adults would enjoy. And I have to tell you, I have never been like, man, turn this off. I've never been like that, because they're delightful to listen to. Jenna says, what do you think is an acceptable amount of time to listen to sparkle stories or other things? You know, it probably depends on the situation. Soraya is sensory seeking. She has SPD, so she listens to quite a bit. I would say she probably listens to 2 to 3 hours of sparkle stories a day. Now, that does not mean she's not engaged with us, but because she's sensory seeking, it's very much about her. Either she will be talking or she needs something. So it's about getting her in a space where she feels okay about that. Otherwise, we have other things crop up. I would say most children, an hour a day, maybe. I like to do sparkle stories during handwork. Many of them are like 16 to 20 minutes. So we can sit and do some handwork for 20, 30 minutes and listen to a sparkle story. Let's see. Alicia says, oh, I'm sorry. When do you start letting them be up without you? Well, I'm always up, Alicia. I'm always up. So I'm already up, and they're just not in my space. Like, while they're off in their room or in the living room, wherever they have quiet space, and I am in my space having that quiet space. We have family gathering that generally is at 7. Sam's alarm goes off at 7. And that's usually when we come together. That doesn't mean that we don't have family, like don't have snuggle time in the morning. Because we do sometimes have snuggle time, or we'll snuggle up on the couch. If I've gotten up super early and she's not gotten an opportunity to come and snuggle with me, we'll have a few minutes on the couch. We make that connection time because it's super important. It's super important. But do not feel like the cruise director first thing in the morning. That is like feeling shot out of cannon. No, thank you. No, thank you. Okay, back to my notes here. Let's see. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Jenna says, how do you handle doing computer work with children around? I generally don't. Generally. Not always, though. Not always. If they are engaged in other things, then I'm comfortable with that. Practice your skills. That's another huge key to no burnout. And this is an important one. I want you to emblazon this on your brain. Take plenty of breaks. Plenty of breaks. That means, like for us, we school about 10 days, then we take a day off. Now that doesn't, that means like totally off. Like we go do something that's not school related. Now we might end up in a museum or some crazy field trip kind of thing, but I don't count it. Like I don't go, hey, I'm going to count this as a school day. We go and do something fun about every 10 days. That allows me to have look forward to time off, and allows them to look forward to time off. It really helps break burnout. If you are feeling burned out, I want you to step back and go, how many days am I taking off? Am I taking enough time off? Public school teacher, generally they take off a few days a quarter for planning. And so you have to make those things a priority. I also want you to emblazon on your mind that overwhelm and burnout are a waste of your time. It's really not necessary to be in that space. You don't have to be. It's a choice. So you want to sort of tell yourself a different story. You want to make sure you get plenty of help. I had already had a lot of these things in place, before Soraya was born, and Soraya was a preemie, and she was born in April. She was supposed to be born at the first part of June. And yeah, that didn't work out. She was born in April. But because I had all of our lesson plans planned, it was not a big deal. We just had a baby and kept right on going. You know, we did take some time off, but it wasn't like it totally threw everything to hell in a handbasket, because I take good notes, because I wasn't using this at the time because we hadn't invented it yet. But the Planning for Peace Journal is huge. It takes you through every single step. And we start planning in April for the next school year. So you really want to sort of put that in a way for later, that idea. So as it's March, then you go, oh, I need to start thinking about it. And you'll hear us talk about it, because we'll talk about it a lot. I also had a stroke almost 5 years ago. And because my planning was so good, my husband was able to come in and still do school. My son that's an adult now, he was 17. Yeah, he's almost 22. So he was about 16, 17 at the time. He did lessons because he could open it, and he knew what my planning was. He knew how to prep. He had watched me prep for years. So he was able to step in there. So having those plans in place are golden. They're not just for you. They're for anybody who needs to step in and help you. Don't be afraid to get a sitter. It is an absolute attachment parenting lie that you cannot get a sitter. So just want to make sure you vet them really well, get to know them really well. Also, don't ever use the words babysitting and dad in the same sentence, ever. And if I got dads listening, I want you to hear me. Don't ever say I'm going to babysit my children. That is false. You're going to parent your children. Dad doesn't babysit, dad parents. He never babysits. He might take the kids. That's not babysitting. That's a huge pet peeve of mine and of Eric's. He's like, I don't babysit my kids. They're my kids. To know, I pray and meditate about all of you on a regular basis. Every night, my kids say prayers, and they're always saying, you know, please bless the people that we're working with. Please bless the moms that mom's working with. Help them to be able to help their children. We have really worked to raise children that have a true sense of gratitude, and really want to bring that to all of you. So I think that's it. I have dinner. So I hope you guys have a good night. Bye.